Today we are going to take a look at the new World War II Hungarian miniatures, as well as come up with a painting guide. Now there is two miniatures I'm going to be using in this video. One is a complete fail and the other one is what I do like, and that is the miniature from the Gendarmerie. But before we get into all of that, you can find these miniatures at Warlord Games, and by the way, I do have an affiliate link, so if you wanted to use that, that would be absolutely great. Go to Bot Action, you can find this nation in additional Axis armies. You can find it on the right under Army under Hungary. It's on the second page. You scroll down and there's some of the new Hungarian miniatures on there. So you've got the mountain infantry section, which we're also going to be looking at, as well as that Gendarmerie miniatures too. So I said we've got the Hungarian army infantry for the mountain, as well as that Gendarmerie section. So the mountain infantry look great in typical Warlord medal fashion. There's a bit of flash that needs to be cleaned up, but overall the miniatures are really lovely. Plenty of detail on there, lots of webbing, which is a blessing and a curse. I just hate painting too much webbing, but we know it needs to be on there. So yeah, really nice figures. The facial expressions on them is really nice. Typical, like I said, clean up. So there's a few little lines and flash that you need to clean up, but nothing a metal file won't clean up nicely. You can see this particular figure was really nice, as is this one. The pose is very natural. They've all got their mustaches, which is great, and yeah, look really good. And then the Gendarmerie section, these guys just look so cool. They've got their top hats, as well as some of their other equipment. It just looks surreal, right? They just don't look like they should be fighting in this particular period, but they were, or they were policing. And so yeah, it's going to be fun. Now, actually finding the uniform and what colours it is was a little bit tricky, but this is the photo I'm using as my reference picture. So with that in mind, I'm going to give my miniature a Tamiya Surface Primer light grey prime, and then I'm going to give the uniform a go over with English uniform. Now, as I said, we are going to look at another miniature that is a fail. Fortunately, the Gendarmerie miniature came out nicely. The mountain infantry not so well. I mean, the miniature actually painted up really well. It's just the colour choices I used for the uniform weren't correct, which you will see in a little bit. I'm trying to hide the shame for as long as I possibly can. Now I'm leaving some of that uniform unpainted, as you can see, like the tabs, the shoulder tabs and stuff. We're going to be painting those in a different colour later on. But for the top hat and the boots, I'm using black grey. And you can see that I do like to take my time with these models. It's not just a quick job, just because I don't want to take time having to clean up once I've finished. So if you can, you're either going to do it one of two ways. You're going to slap the paint on, then come around and clean it up, or you're going to take your time. Just depends how quickly you want miniatures on the table, I suppose. Then for some of the straps, I'm going to use German camo medium brown. Now, I'm aware that some of them were like khaki and some of them were medium brown. I'm definitely not a Hungarian World War II enthusiast or have much knowledge about them. So yeah, take that as you will. I know some of the rifle pouches were in a leather colour, as well as their belt. So you can paint that in that German camo medium brown as well as obviously the rifle strap. But I mean, that sort of like bread bag, I think it was, I'm going to be using like a khaki colour, which is what we're seeing now. So I'm using actually old wood opposed to khaki. It's a similar colour to khaki, so you would definitely be able to use khaki if you wanted to. So yeah, I think it's some sort of bread bag or another like satchel. That we're painting in that colour. This is the sort of stuff I found on Google using reference images. So if this is completely off, guys, please let me know. But I think it's pretty accurate. As well as the little emblem on his top hat, I'm going to be painting that in that old wood. And then for the wood, I'm using flat earth. I mean, flat earth is my go-to. You probably, if you're someone that's watched videos on this channel frequently, then you're probably sick of hearing it, but it is just the same recipe, and it's probably good to be consistent so you guys aren't having to buy a million different paints. I do like to change it up slightly just so it's not all the same stuff, but why break something that's broken, in my opinion? I think the flat earth orange brown recipe just works wonders. Then for those metal, I'm going to go ahead and use black grey. So you could have done this as well as the same time when we used it for the top hat and the boots. But I like to put the wood colour down first so there's less cleanup and I can just come ahead and finish off those metal parts on the rifle. Obviously, if he had any other metal objects on him as well, you'd be painting that in the same colour. Then for what I believe is the gas mask canister, I'm using US olive drab. This is a little bit different. I would normally use like a US dark green, but I wanted to try something just a little bit brighter and not so dark. So hopefully it's going to come out nicely. Now he has a whistle and a lanyard. So the whistle I'm painting in a silver colour. It doesn't have to be base lead Belgium one. It can be any silver, but I'm using a silver. And that particular lanyard is of like a green colour from what I've seen now. I'm not sure if different regiments have different colour lanyards, but we will look at that in a little bit. Before we get onto there is what I believe is a water bottle that is of like a grey colour. So I'm using basalt grey for that one. Now it does have some straps around it, so don't paint the whole thing in grey. You obviously want to paint the straps in that leather brown colour, so that medium German brown that we used just before. And for the feathers on that hat, I'm using black. They were just black. I mean, there's not much more you can really do with them, so I'm just painting them black. Well, the reference photo I'm using were black. Again, I'm not sure if different regiments or whatever use different colour feathers. I don't think so from what I saw. So for that green lanyard, I'm using German uniform. You can see that I'm just taking my time here, and I'm getting that paint on there nicely. There's lots of little bits to that strap, so just make sure you're not missing them. With that strap done, we can then paint some of the insignia. So I'm using burnt red. In that reference photo we saw at the very start of the video, he had all red, so that's what I'm just going to copy just to make life a little bit more simpler, and just to ensure that I don't mess up anything with the wrong colour choices, which is something I do quite frequently, which must be a pain for some of you watching. Now I'm going to use that Null Oil and Technical Medium wash that I favour at a 1:1 ratio, so it's 1 part wash and 1 part of the applicable thinner, so the Warhammer thinners for that wash. I'm also using my Battlefield Accessories Citadel pot holder, so if you want to grab one of those, there is a link to the video. There is a link in the video description to where you can get that, and don't forget you can get it for free if you follow the information that's listed in that description. Now this is the fail. So I'm using English uniform again, so obviously if you're painting the previous miniature, his whole uniform was an English uniform, so we're going to be painting the original base colour first. Now this particular miniature, I went with khaki for his base uniform, and then yeah, it was only when I started painting him I thought, oh no, this doesn't look right. I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep it in just to show that we all are human and we make mistakes, but this would be a really good colour for like an Africa Corps miniature, so you know, it's not all lost. Maybe I'll do an Africa Corps tutorial using these paints now. So then to highlight the English uniform, I'm using English uniform and khaki grey. Oh, this is actually a really quick step. You could then go one step further and give it a proper highlight of khaki grey, because it is quite brighter than just the mix. But for this, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave it at just the one layer and highlight colour, because I'm going to try and reduce the amount of paints I'm using. Now, if you're not interested in how I paint this khaki uniform, please do skip on a minute or so. But if you are, I'm going back over that uniform in khaki again. You could get away with if you painted it all in khaki, which is what I'm going to do, just to make it all look uniformed. Say that it's a worn uniform, I still don't think it would look this light, but you know, you might be able to get away with it. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get away with it. I can't be bothered trying to paint that uniform, English uniform again, just because I know I'll make a ton of mistakes. And then for the first layer, I'm using khaki and German camo beige at a 1:1 ratio. And you see I'm just picking out all those little bits, just bringing it up to that bright color and leaving those base colors in those more shaded areas. And then I use khaki and German camo beige at a 1:1 ratio. I know I said 1:1 before, it's 2:1. This is the final highlight. Again, overkill. Don't have to do this part if you don't want to. You could probably just do this part opposed to the 2:1 as we previously saw. But yeah, it really is up to you guys what you want to do. The more layers you put on, it's just the less likely it's going to stick out in terms of like going from like just the khaki and German camo beige. It's a very bright transition. You're slowly transitioning it with the layers to that brighter color. So it's going to look more natural. So then for that leather, we're going back over it in German camo medium brown. So this guy's got a pistol holster. He's got a binoculars holster or holder. He's also got a brown bag satchel that can be painted this color. You could also paint his mustache in this color. His straps for his SMG, they're also have got some leather straps to them, as well as his SMG strap, which I think is what I just mentioned. And then to highlight that leather, I'm using German camo medium brown and orange brown at a 1:1 ratio. So for like this rifle, this SMG strap, for example, I'm literally just painting a line on each side, just to sort of make it look like it's folded in on itself ever so slightly, making that outer edge of that strap just pop a little bit more. Now we can start bringing this satchel to life. So I'm just painting the very outer edges. You can see that Warlord miniatures have the details in them in order to be able to do this, which is really good. And also painting on the little parts of the satchel, like the little strap that's on the satchel. So now for the old wood part, so this again looks like just another satchel or a bread bag. I'm painting that in old wood. So exactly like what we did with the gendarmerie miniature before. Who likes painting all this bloody equipment, eh? Just want to make it nice and quick, get it on the table. Curse all these sculptors are just brilliant at making miniatures just look absolutely great. But no, I'm joking. I love all the equipment. It really does bring miniatures to life. It's just a pain in the ass to paint. So that old wood I'm also using for the gaiters as well. And then to highlight that, I use old wood and Iraqi sand at a 1:1 ratio. So Iraqi sand is very bright, as you'd expect, sort of sandy colour. And the principle is exactly the same as what we've done before. So those straps, outer edges of them are being painted with just like a line on each side. And then the details that you can see that pop nicely on these bags, I'm going to start capturing. So the raised edge is going to get a nice little line on there. And then slowly scratching some details just to make certain areas of this satchel pop. Now for the wood, we want to simulate wood grain. So we're using flat earth again, and I'm literally just painting on horizontal lines here. There's no real method to it. It's literally just like horizontal lines. Yeah, so once you've got that on, you'll see you want some of that dark base color to come through. So we're starting to simulate wood grains, and then we can make it a little bit brighter. So we use that flat earth and orange brown at a 1:1 ratio. And then we start reducing the amount of this particular paint that we're putting on. So less amount of these, or a lower amount of these little lines that we're putting on. And then finally, we use orange brown. And orange brown is a very bright colour, so you want to be very careful with how much of this you're putting on. You really don't want it to stick out too much or look a little bit too unrealistic. Make it look like a orange. So you see that it just makes that wood pop. It's bright enough to make it stand out on the tabletop too. Then for the metal, we use black grey. Lots of details on this particular SMG as well, which is great. So we can paint all of those on. As well as giving the boots their black grey base colour. You don't really need to do too much with the boots because you're going to end up wearing them anyway. And then black grey and basalt grey at a 1-to-1 ratio. So now we're bringing that colour down to that black to a more of a brighter grey. Obviously a lot of weapons weren't silver, they were more of a grey or a dark grey, or had a dark grey tone to them. And they might have been silver, but they're obviously dirty, so they looked grey than what they actually were. As well as the top hats, you can see that we've reverted back to the gendarmerie miniature, and the correct sort of paint scheme that I was looking for with this mounted infantry as well. This is what I wanted him to look like minus the top hat. And then basalt grey and London grey at a 1-to-1 ratio. It's just going to be a bit of a brighter colour for the SMG. You don't have to do this, you could just use basalt grey. But I think this works really well on making that grey really stand out and give it almost a silver hue to it without actually using a silver. Now we can use that US olive drab for the gas canisters and any other sort of, if you had like an ammo canister and stuff like that. And then to highlight that, I use US olive drab and German camo beige World War II at a 2-to-1 ratio. It's really important you don't go half and half because it'll just look too bright and unrealistic. And that original base colour will just look way too dark. So if you put a little bit of man on there, it'll be fine. Now for the water bottle, I use that basalt grey again. Now we can go ahead and hit that lanyard with German uniform. So there's like 2 balls up near his shoulder that I'm painting in this. Then there's like some sort of like bits of fabric that are dangling off, which you want to sort of capture as well. And then to highlight those, we use German uniform on white grey at a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's really quite bright now. And I'm just adding in little dots on each ball and few little lines for each bit of the strands. And then base lead bocher for the silver, but as I said, any silver will do for the whistle. You can also highlight that silver with a brighter silver if you want to, so I use Stormo silver from Warhammer. Then for that burnt red insignia, we just go over it in burnt red again. So he's got on his collars as well as on his shoulders tab, so we're giving that a go. And opposed to using a red, just straight up flat red, I went with burnt red and flat red because it was a darker red in the reference photos I used at a 1-to-1 ratio. Now I know I said at the start that I messed up one of the uniforms, and in fairness, painting it straight up khaki with a really light highlight, it didn't look great. It looked more like a deserty sort of uniform. However, once I gave it a green glaze, I used the AK uniform definition filters, I think they're out of production now, I give it a green glaze, it's come out really, really nice. So if you want to do something similar, then yeah, maybe give it a go. So overall, they've come out really nicely. I think the 2 of them would work great for the 2 different types of Hungarian uniforms that I've seen. So you've got like more of the English uniform and more of the green, really green khaki look to it. So perhaps make your khaki just a little bit darker. But yeah, really, really nice, fantastic sculpts. Warlord Games keep releasing some fantastic miniatures. A huge thank you goes out to them for sending me these samples, as well as my YouTube channel members and patrons. You guys are just bloody awesome. Special mention goes out to Patrick and Oscar for being those Panzer Aces. If you'd like to join their ranks, you can join for as little as $8 a month, and you get access to a few little perks and such. I'm going to leave it here, guys. Let me know what 28mm tutorial you'd like to see next, and then I'll catch you at the next one.